The station hung in space like a miracle. A city of steel and glass stretched for miles in every direction, drifting silently against the black sea of stars. Lights shimmered across its surface, so many that from a distance the structure looked like its own galaxy. Locals called it Harmony's Edge, a name that sounded hopeful, maybe even beautiful. But to those who knew better, it was a knife's edge. Peace balanced here, waiting for the smallest push to tip into war. Jace Ward adjusted the strap on his pack as the shuttle doors hissed open. The docking bay beyond was massive, wide enough to hold entire freighters, tall enough to make him feel small despite his years in the military. The air smelled sharp, metallic, mixed with something sweet and strange. Alien scents. He paused on the threshold, eyes scanning everything, always scanning. His hair was streaked with gray at the edges, and the scars across his knuckles told stories no one asked about. He was here as a security advisor, though he hadn't carried that title in years. Ex-soldier, mechanic, survivor. Behind him, the other members of the human delegation filed out. Polished diplomats in clean uniforms, their faces practiced masks of calm. Jace didn't trust masks. He'd seen too many slip when things went bad. At the far end of the bay, figures waited. Alien workers floated above cargo pallets with strange antigrav rigs. A tall, blue-skinned being stepped forward, forearms long and delicate, voice like music. "Welcome, human delegation," the alien said. "I am Morton, station keeper. The other ambassadors await you in Conference Hall 7. The diplomats smiled and offered practiced bows. Jace gave a nod, his eyes never leaving Morton's strange, expressionless face. They walked through corridors that curved with impossible geometry. Transparent walls revealed the starfield outside, dotted with ships of every shape. Crystal vessels that glowed with inner light, warships bristling with spikes of dark metal, and strange crafts that seemed to ripple and shift as if alive. Jace slowed, studying them. He had fought in 3 wars, but nothing in Earth's fleet looked like these. The Zephyrians' crystal ships shimmered, dazzling but cold, like blades of frozen light. The Corvan warships, nothing but weapons welded together, black and brutal. And the Thalorian vessels, those unsettled him most. They changed shape as he watched, fluid and shifting like they couldn't decide what they wanted to be. "First time seeing this place?" someone muttered at his side. Jace glanced at Ambassador Reva Hale, the leader of the human delegation. Her hair was pinned neat, her uniform flawless, but her eyes flickered like someone already calculating odds. She wasn't as soft as she looked. "First time, yeah," Jace said quietly. "Feels like a powder keg." She gave him the barest smile. "That's why you're here." The conference hall was enormous. At its center stretched a table carved from a single piece of black stone, polished so smooth it looked like liquid. 4 sides, one for each species. The alien delegates were already waiting. The Zephyrian ambassador, Cathara, shimmered like living crystal, light rippling through her transparent body. When she turned her gaze toward the humans, it sounded like wind chimes. "Ah, the newcomers," she said, her voice cool. "Adorable, only 3 to speak for your species." At her words, the Corvan general rumbled with laughter. Vorthon was massive, his body armored in natural plates, his eyes predator-sharp. The sound he made was like grinding stone. "3 is enough," Vorthon said. "Humans are children. They learn fast, but they are children still." The third delegate, Selenth of the Thalorian Collective, tilted her head. Her body was slender, her movements slow, but when she looked at Jace, he felt something brush against his mind, cold fingers rifling through thoughts. He flinched before he could stop himself. "Curious," she whispered. "Your minds are so contained, locked away." Ambassador Hale smiled as though nothing had happened. "We believe in privacy. Perhaps that is what you sense." Jace forced his jaw to unclench. He hated mind readers, hated the way they pried without asking. Station Keeper Morton raised a hand. A holographic map flared above the table, showing star systems colored in shifting light. "These are the disputed territories in the outer spiral," Morton announced. "Each of you has laid claim. Today we seek peace." Peace, the word tasted bitter to Jace. He'd heard it before battles too many times. The negotiations began. Voices clashed. The Zephyrians claimed they had the technology to mine without harm. The Corvans roared that they had conquered the systems and so owned them by right. The Thalorians whispered that resources should be divided by wisdom, not violence. And all the while, the aliens tested the humans, mocking, insulting, waiting for weakness. Ambassador Hale stayed calm, answering with practiced grace. "We are here to listen. Humanity is new to this region. We will learn before we speak." That earned glances, surprise, irritation. They had expected arrogance, not patience. Jay sat silent, positioned so he could watch every exit. His hand brushed the hidden device under his jacket, a habit he couldn't shake. His instincts whispered that something was wrong. During the first break, he slipped close to Hale. "Something moving out there," he murmured. "More ships than they declared, all three species, looks like buildup." Her eyes narrowed. Danger. Not from them, they still think we're harmless, but he hesitated, the hairs on his neck prickling. Something else is coming. On cue, Dr. Nyla Sarin, the team's scientist, joined them. She carried a case that hummed faintly. "The biological readings I've been pulling, elevated stress in every delegate, hormones spiking. They're preparing for something." "Not war with us?" Hale asked. Nyla shook her head. "No, something bigger." Before Jace could answer, the station alarm screamed. Not drills, not malfunctions. Urgent, panicked wails that made the air vibrate in his chest. Morton burst back into the hall, his long arms flailing over a controlled device. His voice, usually musical, now shook with terror. "All delegates remain calm. An unknown fleet has been detected approaching the system." The holographic map shifted. Red dots bled into the edges, then more, then hundreds. Vorthon surged to his feet. "How many ships?" "We do not know," Morton stammered. "They absorb our scans, but estimates suggest at least 200 vessels." 200. Nyla's face went pale. "I'm reading biology in those signatures, the ships, they're alive." The hologram zoomed closer, and the room fell silent. The ships were nightmares, twisted flesh fused with metal, moving like predators in the void. They weren't following flight paths, they were hunting. Selenth screamed suddenly, clutching her head. "I touched their minds. There is nothing but hunger, endless hunger." Jace felt his stomach turn cold. He had hoped never to see this day, but humanity had prepared anyway. Hale straightened, her calm mask still in place, though her eyes had hardened. "Station Keeper, send a message to our escort fleet. Tell them we have confirmed hostile contact." Vorthon sneered. "Your three little ships, they will be ash in seconds." Before Hale could reply, the station shook. Through the transparent walls, they saw the Zephyrian crystal ships forming ranks, their weapons blazing light. The beams struck the nightmare fleet, and the enemy swallowed the light hole. The first Zephyrian salvo lit the void like a sunrise. Brilliant beams of crystal energy lanced across the darkness, striking the alien invaders with dazzling precision. For a moment the light was beautiful, for a moment it looked like hope. Then the beams vanished into the nightmare ships, as if the universe had swallowed them whole. The invaders surged forward, undeterred, their grotesque hulls glowing faintly where the energy had been absorbed. Cathara of the Zephyrians made a sound like shattering glass, panic, disbelief. "Impossible! No vessel can withstand." Her words died as the crystal fleet was engulfed. The Corvans roared in answer. Their warships launched into motion, sleek black predators against the stars. Cannons fired, hurling massive projectiles meant to punch through any armor. The shots struck home, smashing into the twisted metal-flesh hybrids. For half a heartbeat, Jace thought they might hold. Then the projectiles dissolved, vanishing into the monstrous hulls, like food into an endless stomach. General Vorthon's laughter, once booming with confidence, choked into silence. "This cannot be." The Thalorians tried next. Their ships glowed, strange, psychic waves pulsing through the void. Jace felt the weight in his mind, like pressure pushing at thoughts. Selenth stood with her eyes closed, tendrils of focus streaming from her like smoke. But then she screamed, a sound so sharp it felt like claws across the brain. She collapsed to her knees. "They are not crews," she gasped. "The ships are the crews, and they are starving." The invader fleet surged closer, tearing through crystal formations and armored hulls alike. The station shuddered with every distant explosion, lights flickering. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Ambassadors frozen, warriors broken, a hall full of the galaxy's leaders staring into extinction. Until Ambassador Hale spoke. Her voice was calm, steady as a blade. "Station Keeper, tell our escort fleet to engage, full authorization." Morton blinked, as if only now remembering the three small human vessels drifting at the system's edge. But they are only. Do it, Hale said, steel in her tone. The observation windows flared alive. One human ship, the Resilient, changed course. It looked pitiful compared to the Zephyrians, shining armadas, or the Corvan's brutal war machines. Small, fragile, insignificant. Vorthon snorted. One ship against hundreds, your species is mad. Jace's lips curved into something that wasn't a smile. Watch. The Resilient did not charge, it vanished. One moment clear on sensors, the next gone, slipping into the debris fields, twisting behind asteroid shadows. The monstrous fleet adjusted course, confused, predators searching for prey they could no longer see. Then explosions bloomed inside their formation. Precise, surgical. 1, 2, 3 enemy vessels detonated, their twisted bodies tearing apart. The Resilient flickered back onto sensors only to vanish again. Its attacks came from impossible angles, hidden in the graveyard of wreckage. Cathera's crystalline body flickered violently. How is this possible? Jace leaned against the window, arms folded. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned. Humans are very good at hunting things that think they can't be hunted. Another blast lit the void. Another predator gutted. The once unstoppable fleet staggered, its unity breaking. Resilient Actual, this is Morrison. Jace's voice crackled through a hidden comm, low and steady. He'd been carrying the device since the shuttle. Confirmed contact with Devourer-class hostiles, requesting immediate assistance. The reply came in less than 3 seconds. Morrison, this is Admiral Harrison aboard the Resilient. We've been waiting for this call. Fleet is moving to combat positions. Engagement in 4 minutes. Selenth raised her head, eyes wide. More ships. More than you can count, Jace said softly. Through the windows, the Resilient danced its deadly ballet. Every strike tore apart another abomination. But Jace knew it was only a prelude. Then, like wolves from the dark, more human ships appeared. Not in neat formations. Not like fleets the aliens knew. They slid out from asteroid belts, from planetary shadows, from places no ship should have been able to hide. Dozens, then hundreds. All waiting, all patient. Admiral Harrison's voice thundered through the station comms, calm and deadly. All stations, this is the Resilient. You are engaging confirmed Devourer forces. Rules of engagement are weapons free. Repeat, weapons free. Show them what happens when something tries to hunt humans. The galaxy's predators became prey. Human ships moved like shadows. They struck, vanished, struck again. They used wreckage for cover, gravity wells for slingshots, debris to blind sensors. The Nightmare fleet, once unstoppable, found itself herded, pushed, trapped. Colonel Tor's voice joined the comms, sharp and steady. Marine boarding operations underway. Disabled vessels secure. Recommend non-human forces maintain distance. Targets leak biotoxins on death. Selenth tried again to probe, desperate to understand. This time, what she found was worse than hunger. She found patience, calculation, a cold focus that stretched back centuries. She pulled away with a whisper, "What are you?" Dr. Nyla Saren snapped the final piece of a rifle into place, her voice calm, clinical. "Persistence hunters. On Earth, we used to chase prey across continents. Days, weeks, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we killed it." Jace checked the seals on his armor, black plating that swallowed the light. "And we learned that the best hunters are the ones their prey never even sees." The observation windows shook with another explosion. A Devourer ship, larger than any before, collapsed inward under a coordinated barrage. Hale finally stood. She was no longer the smiling diplomat. Her movements were sharp, precise, her eyes colder than the void. "Command, this is Grant. Authorization code 77. Initiate blackout protocol for this system." The response was instant. "Confirmed, Ambassador. Perseus Battle Group inbound. Arrival in 8 minutes." Vorthon rumbled, his armored body shifting. "What is blackout protocol?" Hale didn't answer. She only glanced at Jace. He nodded once, stripped off his uniform jacket, and revealed the full combat armor beneath. Nyla assembled another weapon, her hands too practiced for any scientist. Cathera's body flickered wildly. You're not diplomats." "We are diplomats," Hale said, voice calm, almost gentle. "But we are also hunters, Teachers can be warriors, scientists can be soldiers, ambassadors can be predators. Outside, the human fleet tightened its grip. The nightmare ships, once devourers of galaxies, now fled in confusion. Admiral Harrison's voice echoed again, ancient and terrifying. All stations, this is Harrison, weapons free. Show them why nothing hunts humans twice. The black stone table lay forgotten. The aliens stood in silence, their fleets shattered, their confidence broken. And through the observation windows, they watched the impossible. They watched humanity hunt. The station trembled as another detonation flared across the stars. From the observation windows, the alien delegates watched their fleets collapse while human ships moved like predators in a dark forest. The Resilient blinked in and out of sensor range, each reappearance marked by a precise strike. Explosions tore through the twisted enemy vessels, spraying grotesque shards of metal and flesh into the void. But the invaders weren't retreating, they weren't afraid. They were feeding. Jace's jaw clenched as he read the sensor feeds scrolling across his wrist device. They're adapting. On the tactical display, the red swarm reformed. Where gaps had opened, new vessels twisted to fill them. Shredded husks regrew, twitching and mutating even as they drifted apart. Dr. Nyla Saren's voice was calm but grim. They're not machines. They're organisms. Cut one open and the others learn. They're evolving faster than anything should. Ambassador Hale's face hardened. She leaned toward Jace. How long until Perseus arrives? 6 minutes, Jace said. He didn't add what his gut told him, that 6 minutes could be forever out here. The alien delegates were unraveling. Cathera, crystalline body flickering with chaotic light, hissed, "You brought this upon us. You humans knew they were coming." Selenth shivered on her knees, whispering, "Hunger, endless hunger." Her voice shook like broken glass. General Vorthon slammed a clawed fist into the black stone table, cracking the surface. "No force can fight this. Even your tricks will fail. You will die with us." Jace turned on him, voice like a knife. "Wrong. We're not dying here, not today." Before Vorthon could answer, the tactical display shifted. Morton, the station keeper, paled. His long fingers danced frantically over the console. New contacts, outer system. The hologram zoomed out. Red dots bled across the edge of the map. Hundreds of them, then more still. Selenth whispered the words that froze the hall. "The main fleet." Nyla swallowed hard, counting 1,500 signatures minimum. The room fell silent. 1,500, more than the combined fleets of every empire represented at the table. Cathara's crystalline body dimmed with despair. No civilization survives this. It is extinction. Vorthon bared his teeth. "If we are to die, let us die fighting. Better to be devoured in battle than cowering on a station." Selenth shook her head violently, clutching her skull. "You don't understand. Fighting them feeds them. Every attack strengthens them. They grow with violence." Nyla stood slowly, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Then maybe it's time you learned how humans fight." The others turned to her. She wasn't smiling. Her hands moved quickly, assembling devices from her case that were most definitely not scientific tools. Weapons, jammers, field projectors. Her voice was calm, precise. "Marines have confirmed biological weaknesses in their samples, neural clusters that overload at specific frequencies, pain responses triggered by targeted resonance. They can be killed." Cathera snapped, "How can you know this? You've never faced them before." Nyla looked up, her eyes cold. "We've been tracking them for 18 months. The alien delegates recoiled. Jace's comm crackled. "Harrison to Morrison, confirmed visual of main fleet. Estimated arrival 90 minutes. Implement contingency delta." "Copy," Jace replied. His voice stayed steady, but his gut twisted. 90 minutes until the apocalypse reached them. He turned to Hale, "Orders." Her gaze swept the room, calm even as chaos roared beyond the glass. "We hold. We buy time until Perseus arrives." Vorthon growled, "Buy time?" against a force that consumed galaxies. Hale's expression sharpened, not unkind, but unyielding. "General, on Earth we have a saying, predators only survive if they choose their ground." She turned to Jace, "Get our hunters in position." The human fleet scattered, not retreating, not forming lines. They melted into the void, slipping into asteroid fields, hiding in the shadows of gas giants, powering down until they were indistinguishable from debris. The aliens watching from the station couldn't understand. Their doctrines demanded formation, unity, order. To see a fleet dissolve into chaos was unthinkable. But Jace understood. Chaos was the hunt. Selenth pressed trembling fingers against her temples, reaching once more toward the humans' minds. She expected fear, desperation, hunger for survival. What she touched made her shiver. Stone, patience, focus so sharp it cut her thoughts. They weren't panicking, they weren't hopping for rescue. They were waiting. Selenth pulled away, whispering, You've prepared for this." Jace didn't deny it. The first wave of the main fleet tore into the system like a storm. 1,500 nightmare vessels poured forward, confidence radiating from their grotesque movements. They had consumed countless galaxies. No prey had ever stood against them. The delegates stared in horror. Even Vorthon, warrior of 17 star systems, seemed shaken. "They are too many," Cathara said softly. "No trick can win against this." Jace's voice was quiet, but it carried across the hall. "This isn't a trick, this is pest control." The observation windows lit as the first human ambushes struck. Mines hidden in asteroid belts detonated. Stealth corvettes burst from debris fields, unleashing volleys into the monsters' flanks. Destroyers slingshotted around gravity wells, firing before vanishing again. The predators howled, and for the first time they looked hunted. Morton clutched the edge of the table, eyes wide. Where did all these human ships come from? Our sensors." Hale cut him off, showed what we wanted you to see. Cathara's crystalline body flickered with fury and awe. "You hid them here? For how long?" 6 weeks, Hale said, calm, matter of fact, waiting. Admiral Harrison's voice filled the station, steady as ever. "All units, this is Harrison. Main Devourer force confirmed. This is what we trained for. Engage hunting pattern 7, no survivors." His tone was calm, but beneath it was something older, something primal. Selenth whispered, "That is the voice of a predator." The galaxy's apex devourers had finally met something worse. Humanity. The main fleet arrived like the opening of a black wound in space. 1,500 vessels poured into the system, grotesque and vast, their hulls gleaming with the twisted remains of civilizations they had already consumed. Every alien delegate in the station chamber went still. For them, this was death manifest, the unstoppable tide no species could resist. But for the humans, it was the moment they had been waiting for. Jace's comm crackled to life with Admiral Harrison's voice, steady and sharp. "All human vessels engage hunting pattern 7 Alpha. Heard them. Cut off escape lanes, make them bleed." The alien delegates frowned in confusion. The orders sounded more like instructions for wolves than for ships. Then the ambush began. Human vessels erupted from concealment across the system. Corvettes ghosted from debris clouds, launching volleys before vanishing again. Destroyers powered up from dead wrecks, their weapons calibrated to frequencies discovered in the boarding actions. Cruisers lurked in planetary shadows, then struck with surgical precision before melting back into the dark. The Devourer fleet reeled. For the first time in their endless hunger, they were confused. On the station, Selenth's thin body trembled. She reached again into human minds, desperate to understand. She expected panic, desperation, but what she touched chilled her more than the hunger of the Devourers. Silence, focus, the cold clarity of a predator with nothing in its head but the hunt. She gasped and pulled back. You are in predator mode." Dr. Nyla Saren crouched over a console, assembling a device that looked suspiciously like a portable resonance cannon, didn't look up. Her tone was calm, as though giving a lecture. "When humans enter predator mode, everything else goes quiet. No distractions, no fear, just focus." She slid a power cell into place with a sharp click. "We train for it. Every soldier, every hunter, every marine. It's why your kind can't read us now." Selenth shivered. "It is like touching stone." "Exactly." Outside, the Devourers pressed forward. They weren't just fighting, they were feeding. Weapons fire vanished into their grotesque hulls. Cannons and beams only seemed to make them stronger. The alien delegates cried out. "They're unstoppable." Cathara's crystalline body flickered wildly. "You cannot destroy hunger itself." Jace turned toward her, his face hidden beneath his combat helmet now, black armor sealing around him. His voice was a growl. "Hunger makes things sloppy, predictable. Hungry things always make the same mistakes." The tactical display shifted as human squadrons executed their maneuvers. "Baker Squadron," Harrison ordered, "drive them toward the asteroid field." Charlie Squadron set the trap. Delta closed their retreat route. The ships moved like wolves herding prey. Devourers surged to meet them, confident in their numbers, only to find themselves driven into narrow channels, their formation fractured. Explosions tore through the void as mines detonated. Trapped vessels flailed, grotesque hulls writhing as resonance weapons targeted their neural clusters. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy's apex predators screamed. Colonel Tor's voice came through the comms, sharp and sure. Boarding operations commencing. Marines inside disabled vessels, proceeding with dissection. The alien delegates looked at each other in horror. "Inside," Cathara whispered, "they will be consumed." Nyla shook her head, eyes glinting. "No, they'll learn." In the observation feeds, human Marines moved through corridors of living tissue fused with steel. Pulsing walls bled when cut. Grotesque organs writhed beneath armored plating. The Devourer ships weren't ships at all. They were entities, grown rather than built. But the Marines didn't falter. They advanced with disciplined precision, mapping, cutting, recording. Selenth touched their minds, desperate to understand. What she felt made her stagger back. They weren't afraid, they weren't disgusted, they were curious. They were studying. A Marine squad found a neural cluster glowing with bioelectric pulses. Their leader jammed a device into it and triggered a resonance blast. The grotesque tissue convulsed, then collapsed, dead. "Confirmed vulnerability," Tors reported calmly. "Frequency uploaded, all units target clusters at 4.7 gigahertz. Human warships across the system instantly adjusted their weapons. Their next barrage tore through the monsters with horrifying efficiency. The Devourers shrieked. Nyla's voice carried across the station chamber. "The screaming isn't communication. It's just pain. Ignore it." Vorthon, the Corvan general who had never lost a war, stared at her with wide, unblinking eyes. "You fight like machines, but also like beasts. How is that possible?" Ambassador Hale finally turned to him, her diplomatic mask gone, her eyes sharp as knives. "We fight like humans." Through the observation windows, the battle shifted. The Devourers, once the galaxy's ultimate predators, were being driven into kill zones, dissected and destroyed. But then something worse happened. A new wave of red signatures appeared on the tactical map. Not 200, not 1,500. Thousands. Morton's voice cracked as his long fingers trembled over the controls. These are only their scouts. The main swarm is still coming." The alien delegates froze in terror. Ambassador Hale's voice was calm, cold. "Then we'd better finish the hunt fast." The tactical display bled red. Hundreds of new signatures swarmed into the system, then thousands, forming an ocean of nightmares advancing from the void. Morton's voice trembled, breaking the silence. We miscalculated. These were only their scouts. The true swarm approaches." Cathara's crystalline body dimmed until she was little more than a shadow of glass. Vorthon's massive frame slumped, his armor plates rattling as though too heavy to bear. Selenth curled inward, hands pressed against her temples, her whispers carrying across the chamber. "So much hunger, so much hunger." The alien empires, the great powers of the spiral, were watching the end of everything. But not the humans. Ambassador Hale stood tall, her voice level, commanding. "All human units, this is Grant. Hold positions. Perseus Battle Group is arriving in 3 minutes." 3 minutes. The alien delegates turned toward her, their expressions a mix of disbelief and fury. "You lie," Cathara snapped. "No fleet of that size could hide, we would have seen." Hale's smile was thin, sharp. "You saw what we wanted you to see." Jace adjusted the seals on his armor, the black plating swallowing light. He moved with the calm of a man who had trained his entire life for this moment. "Grant," he murmured, voice low over the comm, "Perseus is dropping hot. We'll need cover fire." "Understood," she replied. The alien delegates stared. General Vorthon growled, "You had an entire battle group hidden here. For how long?" 5 years, Hale said simply. The words hit harder than any weapon. The system tore open. The arrival of the Perseus battle group was nothing like the ordered fleets of the other empires. Human ships didn't appear in neat formations or predictable lanes. They scattered across the system, materializing from asteroid belts, gas clouds, orbital shadows. Some appeared where no ship should have been able to fit. Others slid into real space like hunters emerging from tall grass. Admiral Harrison's voice rolled over the comm system, steady, cold. "All units, this is Harrison. Perseus has arrived. Begin hunting pattern Delta. Remember your training, not one of these things leaves alive." The human fleet moved as one mind, not in formation, not bound by doctrine, but coordinated like a pack of wolves. Cruisers circled, destroyers snapped at the swarm's flanks, frigates darted in and out with surgical strikes. Every attack was designed not to overwhelm, but to herd. The Devourers pushed forward, confident in their numbers, but found themselves trapped again and again, funneled into kill zones where mines and ambushes waited. Cathara gasped, light flaring through her crystalline body. You're hurting them like animals." Nyla, calm as ever, tapped commands into her console, deploying resonance drones. "They are animals, they just don't know it yet." Colonel Tor's voice cut across the channel, sharp and efficient. "This is Tor's. Boarding teams confirm intact vessels secured. Biological samples collected. New weakness identified. Electromagnetic pulses at 4.7 GHz trigger neural collapse. Recommend immediate adaptation." Human ships across the system adjusted weapons in seconds. The next volley struck. Dozens of Devourers convulsed, their grotesque hulls shattering like brittle shells. Selenth staggered, clutching her head. "You're learning while you fight. Every move you make is sharper than the last." Nyla didn't look up from her equipment. That's the point of combat operations. Intelligence is gathered under fire. Vorthon stared in something close to awe. "No wonder your species survived with so few numbers. You adapt like nothing I've seen." Jace's voice was a growl. "Survival is in our blood." The battle became an execution. Human ships struck and vanished, their presence felt only in the explosions that tore apart the swarm. Enemy vessels tried to retaliate but found themselves firing at shadows, chasing ghosts that slipped through the void. Admiral Harrison's orders came like the steady voice of a surgeon. Bravo Squadron cut their center line. Echo collapsed the left flank. Foxhound bait them toward the gas giant. Don't let them spread. Keep them hungry, keep them desperate. And then, softer, like a whisper meant only for hunters, show them why nothing hunts humans twice. On the station, the alien delegates could only watch. Cathara flickered wildly, crystalline form shaking. This is not war, this is slaughter." Hale corrected her gently. "This is pest control." Selenth, trembling, reached again for the human's thoughts. What she found terrified her more than the hunger of the Devourers. She found patience, centuries of it, planning, preparation, a species that had looked at the stars not with wonder but with suspicion. She saw deep space stations hidden in dark sectors, fleets trained in secrecy, weapons designed for prey that had never yet appeared. She staggered back, gasping. You have been preparing for this since you first touched the stars." Nyla finally looked up, her smile cold. "Longer." The swarm broke. Thousands of Devourer vessels convulsed under the coordinated assault. Boarding teams tore through their twisted corridors, cataloging every weakness. Resonance weapons sang across the void, each note tuned to death. The galaxy's most feared predators had never known fear. Until now. But then, as the Perseus battle group closed its noose, new alarms shrieked. Morton's voice cracked, despair choking every note. More signatures detected, beyond the system's edge, tens of thousands, an entire wave approaching. The chamber froze. Tens of thousands, an endless tide. Cathara's voice was brittle. "You cannot fight numbers like that, no species can." Hale's eyes narrowed, her expression calm, focused. "We're not fighting for victory." She turned toward the window, watching the hunt unfold with cold precision. "We're fighting to make sure there's a galaxy left." The tactical map bled red. Not hundreds, not thousands. Tens of thousands of hostile signatures pressed at the edge of the system like a tidal wave of hunger. Even hardened warriors faltered. Cathara dimmed until her crystalline body looked like fractured glass. Vorthon gripped the edge of the black stone table, claws gouging deep cracks into its surface. Selenth collapsed to her knees, hands shaking against her temples. "They are endless," she whispered. "Endless hunger, they will never stop." The alien empire saw extinction. But the humans saw something else. Ambassador Hale's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Calm, cold, commanding. "All human units, this is Grant. Initiate Delta contingency, full persistence protocol." Jace closed his helmet, the black combat armor sealing him in shadow. His voice was steady. "Acknowledged, hunters moving to positions." On the tactical map, the Perseus battle group scattered even further. Ships broke into dozens of smaller packs, darting into asteroid fields, slipping into gas clouds, powering down until invisible. To the alien delegates, it looked like chaos, disorder, madness. But Admiral Harrison's voice told another story. "Alpha Pack shadow the advance. Bravo seed the field. Charlie bait them into the gravity well. Delta Echo, Foxhound split and harry the flanks. Persistence doctrine is live." The humans weren't retreating. They were settling in for the hunt. Selenth trembled as she reached for their thoughts one last time. She had expected fear or fury. What she touched chilled her to her core. Patience. Not the patience of prey hiding in fear. The patience of predators packing the edge of the forest, waiting for the moment prey stumbled. She gasped aloud, her voice cracking. "You are not fighting to win a battle. You are hunting. You are going to run them to exhaustion." Nyla Saren's eyes gleamed as she adjusted her resonance weapon. Her voice was calm, clinical. "Exactly, persistence hunting. The oldest strategy our species ever learned. Chase until they falter, harass until they collapse. Predators that never stop moving, never stop cutting. Hungry things always break eventually." The swarm surged forward, tens of thousands strong. Their grotesque hulls shimmered with stolen energy, their movements confident, unstoppable. But they were not fighting armies anymore. They were being hunted by ghosts. A pack of human ships struck from an asteroid belt, ripping through the swarm's rear lines before vanishing. Another pack baited vessels into a gravity well, slingshotting around the planet to attack from impossible angles. Mines seeded in advance detonated in carefully calculated patterns, cutting the swarm into smaller and smaller groups. The predators staggered, unable to understand. They had never been herded. They had never been prey. General Vorthon stared, his massive body trembling. "I have fought 17 campaigns, conquered entire systems. I have never seen a fleet fight like this." Ambassador Hale's eyes never left the window. "That's because no fleet fights like this, only hunters." Inside the Devourer vessels, human marines carved a bloody path. Their black armor gleamed wet with alien fluids, their rifles shrieking at resonance frequencies tuned to tear through grotesque tissue. Every kill taught them more. Every breach revealed a new weakness. Colonel Torres reported from the field, her tone calm even as chaos howled around her. "This is Torres. Neural nodes confirmed vulnerable to chain disruption. Recommend ripple frequencies, overload 1, cascade collapse across entire vessel." "Copy," Harrison replied. Seconds later, destroyers across the system adjusted weapons. The next volley ripped through dozens of Devourer hulls, collapsing them from within like rotten fruit. Selenth sobbed softly. "They are learning, they are still learning." Nyla's smile was razor-thin. "Every fight teaches us how to kill the next one faster." The swarm pressed harder, hurling ships forward in waves. But the humans never met them head-on. They slipped aside, scattered, regrouped, struck again. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the swarm, once unstoppable, began to falter. The predators were tiring. Then the next shock came. Morton's long arms flailed over the console, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Our long-range sensors." He froze, staring at the readings. You are feeding us false data. You have been jamming our sensors for months." Hale didn't deny it. Her gaze was fixed on the tactical display, cold and calculating. "We've been tracking their approach for 18 months. We built the trap before they arrived." Cathara's crystalline body flickered violently. "You knew All this time you knew. We suspected, Hale said, so we prepared. The Devourer swarm convulsed. Thousands of ships shifted, breaking into desperate surges, trying to overwhelm human packs with sheer numbers. But persistence hunters don't break. Harrison's voice was calm as stone. All units collapse the circle, bleed them dry, no survivors. Human ships swarmed like wolves, coordinated through instinct and training. Packs drove their prey into kill zones. Ambushes erupted in synchronized precision. The swarm's numbers became a weakness, their bulk choking them in asteroid fields, their mass betraying them to mines seeded in advance. The predators screamed. And for the first time in their long, endless hunger, the screams were not of prey. They were their own. Selenth whispered, broken and trembling. In our myths there were always shadows in the dark, guardians. We thought they were only stories. She turned her wide, alien eyes on Hale. You are those shadows. Hale's smile was not cruel, but it was sharp enough to cut. No, we're just human. The tactical map shifted again. Red signatures winked out hundreds at a time. The swarm was dying. But even as victory loomed, a chilling message cut across the comm. This is Tor's, the colonel's voice crackled. Inside captured vessels, we've recovered star charts. The Devourers aren't just from another galaxy. They've been crossing the void for millions of years. These aren't the first civilizations they've consumed. The chamber froze. Nyla's hands stilled. Jace's jaw tightened beneath his helmet. Even Hale's calm eyes flickered for half a heartbeat. Millions of years. The swarm in this system was only one of countless waves. Selenth whispered the words no one wanted to speak aloud. There are more coming. The tactical map glowed with red, thousands of hostile signatures collapsing under the coordinated fury of the human packs. Each minute, more dots vanished, shredded by resonance weapons or torn apart from within by boarding teams. The swarm was dying, but Tor's words still hung in the air like a blade. They've been crossing the void for millions of years. These aren't the first civilizations they've consumed. The chamber was silent. Even the alien delegates, creatures from empires that spanned whole arms of the spiral, stood as though frozen. Cathera whispered, her crystalline body trembling with a sound like cracking glass. How many galaxies have they eaten? Nyla Saren didn't look up from her console as she recalibrated her resonance weapon. Her voice was calm, clinical. Enough that we should assume there are more waves out there, possibly thousands. Selenth's hands shook against her temples. They will never stop. Endless hunger. Even if you destroy this swarm, others will come. You cannot fight forever. Ambassador Hale turned from the window, her eyes sharp and cold. You're wrong. Humanity can fight forever. That's the point. The last of the swarm broke. Devourer vessels scattered, but scattering only doomed them. Packs of human ships herded them into dead zones, traps, ambushes. Resonance mines detonated in surgical patterns. Boarding teams struck like knives. And then silence. Only wreckage remained. Admiral Harrison's voice rolled across the comm system, steady as ever. All units confirm 0 contacts. Begin sterilization sweep. No survivors, no regeneration. We end them here. Human ships fanned out, scanning every fragment of twisted metal and rotting flesh, burning anything that twitched. The hunt was over. The alien delegates stared at the field of ruin beyond the observation windows. Where there had once been tens of thousands of predators, there was now only drifting ash. General Vorthon's massive shoulders slumped. They are gone, all of them. You wiped them out. Commander Jace Morrison removed his helmet, his scarred face grim. That was the point, General. Apex predators don't leave wounded prey. We eliminate the threat. Selenth whispered, voice hollow. You do not fight like others. You do not think like others. You prepare, you wait. Hale inclined her head. We've been waiting a long time. Morton's many eyes blinked, confusion and fear warring across his thin features. But if there are more, if these creatures are endless, how can even you stand against them? For the first time, Hale's expression softened, not with pity but with certainty. Because humanity has something hunger will never understand. Her gaze swept the room, to Cathera's flickering crystalline form, to Vorthon's trembling bulk, to Selenth's haunted eyes. Compassion, cooperation. We don't just hunt for ourselves, we hunt to protect the pack. And now, she gestured to the aliens, the pack is bigger. The renegotiation of the accords took hours instead of days. What had once been bitter disputes over resources now seemed laughably small. The Zephyrians offered access to their crystal mining fleets. The Corvans pledged warriors to stand alongside human marines. The Thalorians promised psychic scouts to probe the dark between stars. But it was humanity that set the tone. Not conquerors, not overlords, guardians. We don't want your systems, Hale told them. We want your trust, because the next wave is coming, and we will need each other if we're going to survive. Selenth, her voice hushed, whispered, in our oldest myths there were watchers in the dark forests, protectors who kept the monsters away. We thought they were just stories. Nyla's hands stilled on her equipment. She smiled faintly, but her eyes were cold. Sometimes stories are just practice runs. On the observation deck, Jay stood beside Hale, watching as human ships drifted through the debris, still scanning, still hunting. Do you think they'll listen? He asked quietly. They don't have a choice, Hale replied. They've seen what's out there, they've seen what we are. The only question is whether they'll stand with us or hide behind us. And if they hide? Her voice was calm, certain. Then we hunt alone. Hours later, the alien fleets departed, limping home with shaken pride but new treaties in hand. Harmony's edge hummed with renewed life. But the humans didn't celebrate. There was no cheering, no triumph. Just quiet efficiency, patrol schedules, biological analyses, long-range scans. The hunt wasn't over, it had only just begun. Admiral Harrison's voice came through the secure channel, crisp as steel. All commands debrief complete, Devourer threat neutralized, human casualties 0, but reconnaissance confirms additional waves in deep void, estimated strength unknown. His tone hardened, carrying the weight of millennia of predators. This was not victory, this was warning. They are out there, they are coming, and when they arrive, we will be waiting. Selenth, lingering at the edge of the chamber, turned once more toward Hale. Her voice was filled with awe and dread. What are you really, diplomats, warriors, hunters? Hale's smile was cold but not unkind. We're human, that means we're all of those things at once. Jay stepped forward, his voice low and steady. On Earth, our ancestors survived because they never stopped moving, never stopped adapting, never stopped hunting. That's who we are, and now the galaxy knows it. Nyla's hands closed her final case, her eyes meeting Selenth's. Tell your people this, predators can be patient, they can be clever, but they always make the same mistake. What mistake? Selenth whispered. Nyla's smile was a razor. They think they're the only hunters. Outside Harmony's edge, the Perseus battle group slid into formation, shadows drifting through the ruins of the swarm. They moved without fanfare, without banners, without glory. Silent, patient, watching. Because in the dark between galaxies, something was always hunting. But now the galaxy had hunters of its own. And they were very, very good at their job.